So this is my third attempt at this video. The first one, the audio got all messed up. My kids got a hold of the camera and somehow unplugged the mic to where it didn't work at all. And so you could stand there and watch me wiggle my lips. And then I tried to go live and that didn't work out so well either. I don't have good enough internet connection out here. So we're gonna do this as if we are live, which means you're gonna get a little bit of that, but just do it all in one take so I can get it out today. I just wanted to show you, before the time gets away too far, I wanted to show you this light that I built for our chicken coop. So I built this a few years ago. This is a daylight extender is what it is. I built this. I was tired of fiddling with timers for the chicken coop, trying to get the daylight to be right so that the chickens would lay. That's the point of a daylight extender, is to keep the chickens laying eggs. They will naturally, as the light starts to diminish, or more importantly as they get increased darkness, it's the increased darkness that stops them from laying. So as they get that increased darkness, they will stop laying in the winter, and so the only way to keep them going is to put a light out there. They still won't lay at 100% what they would in the summer. It usually hits about 60% is what they'll do. But if you get that light out there, it'll keep them from stopping altogether. So I built this light about 3 years ago. It's been going strong since then. I haven't had any issues with it, haven't ever had to reset it. Just plug it in the one time and it goes. So it's automatic resetting. It adjusts every day based on the amount of light it gets and gives the chickens the perfect amount all the time. I keep looking down here because this chicken's staring at me. So they get the perfect amount of light all the time to keep them laying ideally. In the summer months, it'll just stop altogether. The light won't turn on anymore because there's enough daylight to keep them going. But once the season, like now, when the season starts to get later and we start getting less daylight, then the light starts kicking on every night. So I built this light. I'm going to give you guys the instructions to build it. I actually wrote it all out, made a little book out of it, so that should be in the description below, how you can build one yourself. But a few things about these lights: if you're going to put one up, if you don't build mine, if you do one yourself, if you do it with the timer like I used to do, there's a few things that you need to make sure you're doing. One is you need to make sure that the light turns on in the morning. If your light's turning on at night, you're stressing your birds out, because that light turns on. Once the time period for wherever the light's supposed to be on ends, the light suddenly cuts off, then those chickens are just left out in the dark. They don't know where to go. As the light slowly fades in the evening is when they kind of get that signal to start roosting. And so as the light starts to fade, they find their favorite place to spend the night, and then they don't move the rest of the night. They're pretty well blind for the night. I mean, they don't see well at all. And so if you're turning on the light at night, you're stressing them out. So you want the light to turn on in the morning and then turn off after the sun has already come up. A few things that people struggle with these lights, there's two main ones, is that they're concerned about the health of their birds. So they're, one, afraid that it's just unhealthy for them to have this light. They want it to be natural. You know, they think that the artificial light somehow affects them, having too much light, which you can't have too much light. We only want about 15 hours or so of light, or 9 hours of darkness is ideal for them. If they're getting, if you're only giving like 6 hours of darkness every night, that'll stress them out as well. But people worry about the health of their birds. They've done a lot of studies on it, and they've never found any problems with health when they give their birds additional light. So much for doing it in one take. Camera shut off on me. But if you think about it, a bird, living in Hawaii or on the equator, a chicken living there is going to have almost the exact same amount of light year round. And so if that's unhealthy for them, I mean, if having artificial light's unhealthy for them, that's going to be unhealthy for them too. So they do just fine with it. The only health issues that you have to worry about is make sure that they do molt at least once every year, 12 to 6 or 18 months, which they'll do naturally. There's nothing you need to do to make them molt, but they do need that to stay healthy. But if you use a daylight extender, it will keep them from all molting at the exact same time and completely cutting out all of your egg production for that period of time. The other thing that people worry about is that they're going to use up all their eggs early and they won't have any more later on in their life. So, random tidbit about chickens, they have roughly 100,000 eggs when they're born. They're born with all the eggs they're ever going to have. They have about 100,000 of them. If you do the math on that, that is an egg a day for almost 300 years. So you don't need to worry about them running out of eggs. They will naturally, with age, they slow down their production of eggs and they will eventually stop as they age. But that has nothing to do with the amount of eggs they have. They still have plenty. It's just, I would assume, a hormone thing. But using a daylight extender, all the research shows that it is just as healthy for the birds as having a natural light, as long as you're not giving them too much of it and you're not turning it on at night and you're turning it on in the morning. So I want to show you a little bit, just kind of the basics of this light. We'll see if we can see it here. Alright, so our first component that we're going to look at is right up here on the outside. Photocell. That is how it knows what the daylight is. We open up this, that's not the light. Open up this door. Head on in the coop. You'll see up here is the light itself. Back in that corner is going to be our power supply and a timer. Fairly basic components. Check out these chickens in here. Time to clean this coop out. That deep mulch is getting thick and dirty. Time to clean it out and get it ready for winter. But those are your basic components of it. There's really just, what is that, 4 components? The photocell, the timer, the power supply, and the light. And it's just a matter of wiring them together the right way and getting the timer configured. All of that will be in the book I've got for you. I'll put that in the description below again. Just a link to it where you guys can buy that and get the instructions on how to build it yourself. It's really not that complicated. I can build one in about 10 minutes myself. But yeah, that's how we keep our chickens laying year round. So typically, by now our chickens would have started to lay less. I'm not sure if they've usually stopped this early. It's been a while since we've had them without a light. But let me show what we got for today. So this is what it keeps us in. Nesting box is always empty. But there's the eggs we've got for today. If I turn that light off, they will usually go for about a couple days before they'll stop laying. Interesting thing with them is once I turn it back on, if something happens to the light, there's been a few times where the kids have unplugged it and I haven't noticed it, and they stopped laying. If I plug it back in, it takes about 3 days, and then they're back up to what they were before. So it helps pretty quick and keep them laying. So anyway, we will catch you guys next week. We got some good projects going on. We'll show you what we're doing around here. We'll show that to you next week.